What's up? What's up? This is the first installment of History. I think for the first episode, I'm just thrash my boy Sneaky around this argument. Alexander the Great versus Genghis Khan. He's not gonna like this. I got some notes ready for him because I'm not gonna come unprepared. I would probably get beat, but I got some note cards that indisputably would say Alexander the Great is the best. I mean, it's in his name. So, Sneaky, you got anything to say for this?
I mean, if you want to start out like that, the Great is a title, right?
Yeah.
Genghis Khan itself is a title. You know what Genghis Khan means?
Something religious.
Universal ruler. That's a little bit better than the Great, don't you think? After he was proclaimed the Khan of Khans, the universal ruler, the great sky, the Mongols viewed everywhere that did not submit as in rebellion. Everywhere that did not submit. Did Alex do that?
No. See, Alex didn't need to do that because people are already scared of him. His reputation led for himself. While Genghis Khan was conquering like wastelands, like countries or land with like nobody there. Genghis was actually taking the fight straight to the enemy. He was conquering like the greatest empire at the time. Alexander, by the time of his death, the Macedonian Empire had like 44 or it was either 40 or 44% of the entire world's population under its reach. The only other empire to have more than Alexander the Great's population span was the Persian Empire, and he conquered them.
It's interesting that people say, "Oh, he conquered wastelands, the Jia Kingdom, Jin China, Sung China." Those were three of the most populous places in the world at the time, and by far, Jin and Song China, by far the most advanced places in the world at the time. And if you say, how can you say they were wastelands, especially the two Chinas, when in the Yuling campaign, one campaign, mind you, Jin China sent 950,000 men at the Mongols.
Hey, that's actually surprising to hear because most of the battles I looked up, Genghis was like severely outnumbering his opponents and just like sometimes 3-1 and just slaughtering them. So Alexander, on the other hand, sometimes he was at a big deficit. So that is surprising to hear that he fought an army close to 1 million.
What are you talking about? He was out in what? But tell me specifically which battles.
No. There's some battles I looked up. This man Genghis Khan was they call it the horde. He was just outnumbering his opponents and just going in and slaughtering people. The siege of Baghdad, I believe they numbered them like 2.5-1 at least.
Maybe, but that's a single city. When the Mongols took Jin China, there were at most 200,000 Mongol men, period. When the Mongols left the steppe and invaded China, the Great Khan took 95% of all males in the steppe with him. I can't think of a single battle in which the Mongols weren't outnumbered. Not even with just Genghis Khan, but let's think about the Battle of the Khalkha. The Battle of the Khalkha was Subutai, maybe 25,000-30,000 Mongols, 80,000 Russians, God knows how many Cumans. What happened in that battle?
So you're saying the Mongols were most of the time outnumbered?
Yes.
Not the other way around.
Yes. There's a reason why people used to, especially, think that the Mongols were outnumbered. Outnumbered their enemies. It's because they were so efficient in how they divided their armies and being able to attack in multiple places at the same time and then regroup. That's what happened in Poland. That's what happened in China. What's going on?
Interesting.
So what happened in the Kiev and Rus? I gotta get you some better sources. I'd like to know where you looked this stuff up at. What? How many battles did Alexander fight in Persia? Like 5?
Nah, he won every single battle.
That's not the question.
It's
How many
more.
battles did he fight in Persia?
Oh, at least 10, probably more than 10.
I don't think he fought 10 in Persia. He fought Issus, Gaugamela, Granicus.
And he won all of them, and he
Yes.
actually fought in them.
Yeah.
Something Genghis Khan did not do.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't lead the charges, bro. He was not that guy.
Yeah, because are we talking about who is a better just fighter or who is a better commander? Because you know what you can't do if you're leading the charge? You can't command your men. But also, before he became Khan of Khans, he was leading charges. When he was fighting in China, he took an arrow to the neck or somewhere in this area. How would that happen if he wasn't in the thick of it?
Well, like I said, like you said, that was when he was lower. Alexander was doing this like his entire life. He was leading charges. That's insane.
He died at 32.
You said what?
Because he died at like 32.
He's lucky. Yeah, Genghis Khan is lucky he died at 32.
Genghis Khan isn't lucky, Alex. Dog, okay. Here's the thing that I think people forget is there's levels to warfare, especially in pre-modern history.
There is levels, and
yeah, no. Let me finish.
Oh, okay.
There's something Dan Carlin made an excellent point in his series King of Kings. That's my dog Hades, shout out. Where he was talking about how the East, for most of history, fights war at a higher level than the West, right? Such as is evidenced by things like the Yuling campaign had almost 1 million men, and that's a single campaign. The Mongols fought multiple in China. But the way the East fought as compared to the way the West fought would be like chess versus something even dumber than checkers. Eastern warfare, to even field that many men, 950,000 in a single campaign, you have to have a system behind it that can support 950,000 men. And of those 950,000 men, 150,000 of them are experienced veteran heavy cavalry. So not only do you have to support all those men, you have to support the horses. And you got to think they have their camps with them, like their and everything. But there's also something else these Chinese armies have that is nothing like Alexander ever would have faced, besides incredible numbers, gunpowder, and discipline, and good leadership.
Okay, that was a good point.
I know.
Just to have 900,000 men, that the logistics. Just you said what? 950,000. Just to have them loyal to you, first of all, just to be able to build it.
Well,
that's pretty.
They were loyal in the beginning. A lot of them did not stay that. A lot of them joined the Mongols.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't say a majority or anything, but some of them. Some of the Khan's best commanders were Chinese. I believe one of his demon dogs was a Chinaman.
Demon dogs.
Yeah, they were the four dogs of war of Temujin, and then he had like his 4 noble horses or whatever. I don't know. His 4 dogs of war were like Subutai, Mukwili, I think Jebe, and I don't know.
All right. Look, you made some good points. Before this battle slips from me, I'm gonna go to my notes, and here we go. I got some numbers. All right, because people always say one of the biggest reasons for people saying Khan was better than Alexander is because just the vast amount of land he conquered. right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the numbers, right? Genghis Khan at the time of his death, he averaged 571,428 land conquered per years. And
What is it? What?
he conquered for 21 years. Hear me out, hear me out. So that's a more than half a million a year for 21 years. That's 1,565 square kilometers per day. And that's 65 kilometers per hour. Okay. Alexander averaged 530,000 kilometers per year in 10 years. And that's 1,452 kilometers per day and 60 kilometers per hour.
Alexander had to fight one superpower. That's it. That whole point invalid. Alexander had to beat the Persians, and he got a majority of that land. Easy day. Dusted.
What are you talking about, easy day?
Next, please.
That was the whole known world. That was the entire known world.
There was India that he failed to conquer. There was Rome that Greece knew of. There was Carthage that Greece also knew of. Come at me, son. Come at me, son. He had to beat He had to beat the Persians at their weakest. Let's go into that. Let's go into the Persians.
Listen.
He was fighting the Persians at their weakest.
Listen, the only reason why Alexander stopped is because his men were tired of killing. That's how good he was.
That's what they like to say. Who wrote that?
His men were literally tired of killing people.
What's the source on that?
Everybody. Anybody.
His men were tired of killing people? That's insane.
They were tired. They wanted to go home.
Bullshit, they were tired.
They were winning. They couldn't lose.
Immediately after Alexander's death, there was an entire
They knew they could win.
There was an entire age of history that happened after Alexander's death. What was that age called? Or that giant event, that giant historical event that shaped a bunch of Western history before Rome?
I don't know what it was.
The Diadochi Wars. Those same men, Antiochus, Perdiccas, freaking.
Well, but they were fighting for themselves at that point, so they had more motivation. But they didn't want to fight for Alexander.
They weren't fighting for Alexander. That's why they murdered him. I said it.
Nah, you didn't say it.
Yeah.
My boy
What happened to Alexander's father?
What?
What happened to Philip II of Macedon?
He got assassinated.
You're damn right. Why?
I don't even want to talk about this. This has nothing to do with Alexander.
No, just why was he assassinated?
Because of his mistress.
Was his mistress a boy?
It was a homosexual man, supposedly.
Supposedly?
What
we're doing now? You're right. That has nothing to do with anything. But assassination, you've done your research, obviously, you know. Was assassination a pretty common tactic in that area?
Yeah.
Okay. When did that well, I think Philip is a particularly special case because I think he was assassinated because of that little mess up in his relationship or because Olympias. But for me to believe that Alexander's men were just tired and wanted to go home, they would have had to have some sort of peace after Alexander. That did not happen. Immediately, the Diadochi Wars happened. And they did not end until Rome conquered that entire part of the world.
Themselves.
You know what they did to the heirs of Genghis Khan?
Yeah.
They're a dominant political force in this modern era today. The Borjigin clan, son.
I mean, yeah, okay. Real compelling. Nice. I'm glad his son went on to, conquer more. But in the time that Genghis was alive, his feats aren't incredible like Alexander.
They're more incredible than Alexander.
I don't believe so.
You
At the
must
age of
not.
18, my boy Alexander was crushing the Thebans, who had
Ooh,
recently
wow.
came off a victory against Sparta.
Oh, you're acting like Sparta was some incredible victory to have. That's Sparta wasn't a world power at the time. Sparta was barely a regional power
No, I'm talking
when
about
Alexander
30
said,
years, 30 years, 30 years before Alexander, the Thebans had beat the Spartans,
yeah,
and then they had dwelled down. But the Thebans, they still had the experience,
okay.
and
You know what they didn't have? One of two differences. The biggest difference, the Sarissa.
uh,
You make your stick a little longer. Wow, what a revolution.
I mean that's just the genius that Alexander came from. It's not his fault.
He
His
didn't
father
do
was.
that. He didn't do that. His dad did.
It's not his fault. It's not his fault. His
His dad.
dad was
You
that
know,
guy.
Genghis Khan didn't inherit. By all measure, Philip was a more impressive commander. Was really in the thick of it and had to earn the respect of his own men through
He was a better
conquest.
king, but not a
The
better conqueror.
entire conquest of Persia was planned meticulously by Philip before his death.
Yeah, and then
The
Alexander sought
army
it out because,
assembled by Philip.
bro, Alexander, this man did
Temujin,
not sleep for like 10 years. Um, just straight taking over everything.
like, he had to take over. He had to win against one power. His dad had conquered all of Greece. Greece rebelled. He wins like 2 battles. Wow, that's Greece. Then he wins like 4 battles or 5 battles in Persia. And it's not like we're talking about, he's not fighting the experienced Chinese armies. He's not fighting the Russians. He's not fighting the Muslims. He's fighting Persians who do not want to fight him. Largely not professionals, except for perhaps at the battles where Darius himself is present. Maybe the immortals are there. Maybe. Temujin had to fight off not only a rival force, but then technological superior forces to his that matched it, well, in theory, matched his in discipline. All of his opponents being settled, except for the ones that he faced before he was the Great Khan. All of them being settled people. He had to make this military, to forge the tribes at the Battle of the 13 Sides. He did that, not his father. He was a slave at one time.
Yeah, I heard that.
And then he freed himself, rose to power, and nearly eradicated the tribe that had enslaved him. Then he conquers the world superpowers.
Eradicated is right because he was, to put the least, he was brutal and he
So
would
was
just kill me.
Alexander.
He was boiling people alive.
No, he wasn't.
You know what's more Chad of a thing to do?
He wasn't
Instead
boiling.
of taking over down
That was
leaders
Helagoo.
and
That was
boiling
Helagoo.
them,
That was Helagoo.
huh?
Temujin, to my knowledge, did not boil anybody alive. That was Helagoo.
Who he learned it from?
Probably the Muslims, if we're being honest, or the Christians, who they would have known by that time. The
All right.
Mongols were usually very efficient in the way they killed people. Who is all these black horror tales of the Mongols being so horrific come from? Let's be honest, the Chinese.
Oh yeah,
And who does
that's something to agree about.
basically every single source. Well, let me finish my other point. Basically, every source we have about the Mongols comes from a people hostile to the Mongols. Every single source about Alexander comes from pro-Alexander people.
Because he
And I
was that
believe
great.
no.
The people that
No.
the people that he conquered, they actually liked him because
The
he wasn't
Persians didn't.
slaughtering everybody.
Yes, he would many times. What happened to Thebes?
He was sparing a
What
lot of
happened to
people.
Thebes?
Great example. Great example. Genghis Khan was coming in cities, killing people. Alexander, when he beat King Darius in battle, he took his wife, his mother, and his $3. Instead of killing them, instead of selling them into slavery, he treated them well. He treated them like guests. That's Chad. He was like, I'm gonna show you how a real player does it. And he was that guy. Alexander was that guy. Genghis Khan come in, just kill everyone. Just
That's incorrect. That's entirely incorrect. Yet again. But most of his wives, what were most of his wives?
You
Chinese
mean his
princesses?
The ones he raped?
No, they were his wives. But also, if you want to play that game, it's not like Alexander's Persian wives were there willingly either. It came with the territory. The only difference between Alexander is that he's a
We don't know, man. Genghis could have been too.
No. That's why he had multiple heirs that went on to dominate Central Asian politics until like the 1700s. In Mongolia itself until the modern day. Dog, I don't even have notes. I'm freestyling right now off the dome. I know my stuff. Let's go army for no, we're not. We're going commander for commander. Let's look at their opponents though, honestly. Alexander fought Thebes, Persia, close one in India. We'll say contested one. That's about it. Persia was not at its height. He was not ever fighting a technologically superior or more disciplined enemy. He had, by all accounts, the greatest army in the world at the time. Except for maybe what was going on in China, but we don't know. We're far enough in that we can say the actual name. It's not History Negroes. It's History Niggas. Because we're niggas and we're into history. Nigga.
Alexander came, some like 1,500 years before Genghis Khan.
Mm-hmm.
1,500 years before Genghis Khan. That means Genghis Khan, I think I said it before, is Alexander's son. Alexander was the first to use siege equipment in a land battle. Or not siege equipment, my bad. Field artillery. Like, just catapult straight at the army.
Allegedly.
Nah, that shit happened.
You're telling me that when we start getting records of Chinese warfare, it's already hundreds of years ahead of the West? Because Alexander was not a fucking chance.
See, that's the thing. Historians loved him. People loved him because he wasn't slaughtering everybody. That's why he was named the Great.
Yes, he was. He was, dog. Yes, he was, for one. But for two,
I mean,
he's named
he slaughtered
the Great. He's named the Great because that's the name that Western people have given him. The Great is a title, yes? Just like Genghis Khan is a higher title. It means, as I said before, universal ruler of the fucking universe. That's better than the Great. There's Alfred the Great. Would you say Alfred the Great rivals the conquest of Alexander the Great?
Of course not.
Would you say Newt the Great? Conquest of Alexander the Great? No, you wouldn't, would you?
No, what's that dude off What's that dude off of Joe Rogan that's always like, hey, look this up?
Jamie?
Yeah, we need a Jamie, bro.
Alexander had to conquer he had to conquer Persia. That was it. The Mongols had to conquer Jin China, Sung China, the Khwarezmian Empire, the Jia Kingdom, the Kievan Rus. And they Poland, Hungary.
It's not Alexander's fault that Persia was so big. It's not his fault.
It's his fault he didn't go into India. It's his fault his men didn't love him or care, or either he
won a battle in India.
He lost Allegedly.
He did win a battle in India.
How the fuck are you going to tell me you won a battle in India and then that king fights a war? That same fucking king fights a war with one of Alexander's successors. Riddle me that, Batman.
I mean, his army immunity, bro. They did not. They retired.
Okay.
They retired.
Okay, they retired just to fight
They
wars
retired and
in
rich.
5 years.
They wanted to go home.
They retired to fight wars within 5 years. Most of them didn't even make it home. Especially the most experienced of them. Who were they? You better know this one too.
Silver Shields.
You're damn right. What happened to them?
Oh, they went to somebody. I forgot.
They died in combat against Afghanis, probably. At 80 fucking years old.
R.I.P. They served their master well. They conquered half of the known world.
They served Alexander well for a while, then they served themselves very well. They served whoever paid the most well. They were loyal to Alexander until India. That is something we can say conclusively. And
they were too far from home. That's it.
Okay, what about all the other ones who went on to conquer further then? Most of them being those same men. If they were too far from home then, what changed after Alexander's death that they wanted to conquer even further? You commie.
I don't know. It could have been a myriad of things, like more money, more promises.
There was more money then.
Like you kept saying, the history books, people were always talking good about Alexander the Great.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he probably was just like, I'm not gonna say he's a great man. Like he definitely was slaughtered. He slaughtered, all the Thebans basically and burned it to the ground. But he also spared a lot of people. Spared the Athenians. He spared the Spartans just to say fuck them, basically. And when he arrived in Persia, he was not burning and looting all the cities because he deemed Persia already Greek. Like he had claimed the territory. So he was.
That's the same reason the Mongols, and they didn't burn. I don't know where you get this conception that the Mongols were just willy-nilly burning cities as they went. Yeah, they did. But if you surrendered, which was the theme throughout history, if you surrendered, you were fine. If you didn't, and they had to put you to siege, they could do whatever they want. There was multiple. First off, Alexander razed not only Thebes, but also, I believe it was Persepolis, whatever the capital of Persia was. Sacked it for 10 days.
I'm pretty sure he did that when he felt disrespected. Like the Thebans,
he had a reason. The Mongols had a reason too. The only reason that everyone thinks, oh, Alexander was so great, is because A, that's Western historians, and B, everything written about Alexander is written by people that were favorable to Alexander. If you read Mongolian sources, and I'm sure Central Asian sources, in Central Asia, Genghis Khan is venerated today. In Mongolia, he's venerated to this very day. It's all about perspective. Genghis Khan didn't even know about Alexander the Great.
He might have studied Alexander the Great.
He didn't. He couldn't read or write. How would he have done that?
No, that's hilarious.
And how was he to? And Alexander didn't get anywhere near China or the Middle East.
Here's the thing about Alexander. Also, what you said earlier, I think it's funny. If you see on TikTok, all these women complain about icks. Thieves, they were hyping themselves up. All the thieves were hyping themselves up, talking about, revolt from Alexander. And then Alexander came in, like, slaughtered them all. So that was a big ick. These women today don't know about icks. So Alexander, he didn't slaughter everybody. He spared the women and children, right? On the other hand, Genghis Khan was sending messengers to other countries, like asking them for a surrender, and they didn't even respect. Alexander was feared.
Asking.
They were feared. Thebes revolted because they thought Alexander was dead. Genghis Khan, he was sending messengers and diplomats to people, and they were just killing diplomats. They didn't even respect Genghis Khan like that. Like, they weren't even scared
because they didn't know he existed. Like, the steppe was entirely disconnected from that part of the world.
Because they lived in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, that's where they started, basically. But it was the same place that the Huns came from. It was the same place that the Magyars came from. It was the same place the Avars came from, and the Turks. And a bunch of the Cumans. A bunch of other people that have shaped history. Literal entire world history, not just Western history.
At the end of the day, Alexander was not only just a great general, like I said, never lost a battle.
That doesn't mean first. That doesn't mean anything. Napoleon lost battles, and most people, for some crazy reason, consider him the greatest commander, period, throughout history.
Yeah, but Alexander didn't. He didn't lose battles. You can't say that doesn't mean anything. He didn't lose a battle. So there's nothing.
That'd be like me fighting in MMA against 12-year-olds.
Alexander, here's what I'll compare Alexander to. Alexander is Khabib, and Genghis Khan is John Jones. Alexander came in, swept everybody, dominated everybody in 10 years. Genghis Khan is John Jones. He has a more lengthy domination.
You cannot say he came in and dominated everybody when there was Rome still on the field, Carthage still on the
field. He didn't get to him yet.
China.
He retired early,
the Arabian Peninsula,
like
the rest of the Middle East, Britain, Spain. And, dog, if Alexander had to fight any form of caliphate, Alexander would have been donezo. If he had to fight a competent enemy in the place of the Persian Empire, be it the Sassanids or the Achaemenids, or I think he beats the Parthians. Probably, actually, no, I don't. I don't even think he beats the Parthians. Or that doesn't mean anything. Napoleon lost battles, and most people, for some crazy reason, consider him the greatest commander, period, throughout history.
Yeah, but Alexander didn't lose battles. You can't say that doesn't mean anything. He didn't lose a battle. So there's nothing.
That'd be like me fighting in MMA against 12-year-olds.
Alexander, here's what I'll compare Alexander to. Alexander is Khabib, and Genghis Khan is John Jones. Alexander came in, swept everybody, dominated everybody in 10 years. Genghis Khan is John Jones. He has a more lengthy domination.
You cannot say he came in and dominated everybody when there was Rome still on the field, Carthage still on the
field. He didn't get to him yet.
China. He
retired early,
the Arabian Peninsula, the rest of the Middle East, Britain, Spain. And, dog, if Alexander had to fight any form of caliphate, Alexander would have been donezo. If he had to fight a competent enemy in the place of the Persian Empire, be it the Sassanids or the Achaemenids, or I think he beats the Parthians. Probably, actually, no, I don't. I don't even think he beats the Parthians or freaking the Khwarezmian Empire. If Alexander has to face another force that is of similar discipline, he does not win. The only reason he was able to win in Persia was that Persia had well, there were a couple of reasons. Alexander's army was period better. And as I've stated multiple times, the Diadochi, your Antigonus, your Perdiccas, all of them, his father's generals, were the greatest commanders in the world at the time. The most experienced, at least in the Western world.
His father's commanders. I'm pretty sure Alexander went to school with some of them, at least some of his generals.
Was his new ones. Not Antiochus, it's believed, may have been serving with Alexander's grandfather. Most of his generals, the real heavy hitters, except for like I think the Athenian one, were his father's commanders. And then he invited a bunch of new ones in. But most of them had served under his father.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
And they all respected Alexander.
I don't think they did. That's why they killed him. I think for a time they did. Because, oh, well, he's got legitimacy. While he's still alive, Olympias is still alive. You know, better not make our play. Because if any one of them moved against Alexander, obviously the others would move against them. But if there's no Alexander to hold them together, as we saw, what happened? The Diadochi Wars.
Now I'm looking up how many actual battles Alexander was in because we probably need that.
I think like 15. I think it's more important the quality of the opponent.
I mean, Persia, they had the entire world. I mean,
they didn't.
It doesn't really matter.
It does.
It don't. It doesn't.
It does.
It doesn't.
It does.
Persia had the entire world, so I mean, half the world.
They didn't have the entire world. First off, like for real, stop saying that because they didn't have the entire world.
They had 44%.
There was India. There was friggin' the rest of. There was all of Europe.
They had half the world, or a little bit less than half.
There was Asia. There was the entire New World. There was Carthage and Rome, as I've said. Hades, do not. Little dog. You gotta stop with these Western lies. Like, he conquered the entire world. Like, that's legitimately, and I don't mean to be, I don't like being that guy, but like, we gotta start giving world history its due credit.
Yeah.
There's more to the world than Europe.
True. And it seems like Alexander was 20-0 in battles. 20-0. This man won Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, fucking Bulgaria. He won all around the world.
Okay. It's cute. Against nobodies.
And I'm pretty sure the only, like I said, Alexander, by the time of his death, he had Macedonian Empire had controlled 40% of the little of the not the world, the population, right? The only other dynasty to rival that was the Persian Empire, which had 44% of the population. My bad, I kept saying the world, but its population. Macedonian Empire had 40% of the world's population under its grasp. And
there were
I don't know
far fewer people then.
It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, that's the dumbest shit I've heard all day. It obviously doesn't make a difference. If there are more people and more empires, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to conquer all the here. That's the same thing. Alexander is fighting consistently people that are worse at fighting, worse at war than the Macedonians. They are the most powerful war machine of their time. The Mongols came from the bottom, from the top, due to Genghis Khan. All because of Genghis Khan. Alexander was due to his father, and he was fighting a bunch of nobodies. The Persian Empire. You can't just say he beat Persia. You have to acknowledge what Persia it was. It wasn't Darius's Persia, Darius the First's Persia. It wasn't Cyrus's Persia. This was a very weak Persia. Alexander would not have known what to do against the Neo-Assyrian Empire, or Sung China, or Jin China, or the Khwarezmian Shah, or the Abbasid Caliphate.
No, he would know what to do. He would charge right down their throats.
And he would be crushed.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
First of all, he had the pikes, come. Actually, he would have the pikes line up in the front, right? And he'd just swing around the flank and crush them. Obviously, 1,500 years is a lot, but he created. He was those strategies. He created the hammer and anvil.
He did.
He changed warfare.
As far as we know,
he changed warfare.
If he created,
as far as we know, he was warfare. He taught everyone that else.
Literally,
you can't.
Where are you getting this?
Yeah, he has the best army. But
where are you getting this?
What are you talking about?
He invented the hammer and anvil. That's ridiculous.
No, that was him. That's all him.
No, source right now. Source.
Huh?
Source.
That's all him. All right, let's look it up. I'm gonna look up hammer and anvil origins. The Battle of Issus.
Okay, that means nothing. That's Wikipedia.
What? In addition to being used in many of Alexander the Great's battles, it was also used during the Second Punic War.
It was used in a whole bunch of places. That's the most famous in Western history. That's such a non-point to imagine that Alexander invented the hammer and anvil. No one ever thought of holding and then flanking. That's just like, oh, Hannibal invented the envelopment. Like, no. Just the most famous case of it being used. That's another Western historical bias. You need to grow past that. Kind of maybe. It's kind of racist.
It's just a coincidence that the first thing I look up is of Alexander.
It's Wikipedia. That's barely a source.
All right. Whatever you say, man. Bro's mad because Alexander.
Genghis Khan with his army could have dealt with Alexander's enemies easily. Alexander with his army would have been demolished by any of the Mongols' enemies.
I don't know about that.
I do.
I mean, yeah, probably because it was the technological advances, but
the Mongols didn't.
You can't even compare that. You really can't.
Technological advances. So yes, you can. You're telling me that Rome, that Caesar's legion that he invaded Britain with, you're telling me that because that was freaking X amount of time before, it couldn't have beat Richard Lionheart's army?
I mean, yeah, okay. Of course, Genghis Khan's army would beat Alexander's army, but what does that mean exactly? The time difference.
The time difference means nothing. That's why it's separated between pre-modern and modern warfare. Those are the only distinctions. Because it really only changes once you get artillery on the battlefield. That's really the only true difference.
Bro, that's 1,500 years.
Okay.
Yeah, of course Genghis Khan army would beat Alexander's army.
That means Caesar's army would beat most armies in European history.
So he would beat Genghis Khan's army?
No, Caesar? Absolutely not. But was that a European army?
No.
Yeah, and I said, what did I say?
I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah, they'd be up. Okay, 1,500 years. A lot of armies would get destroyed. probably every army. So
No,
okay, yeah,
Caesar's
they'd be.
army. I think Caesar's army would do just fine in its same area. The Roman army, and we'll not just say Caesar's, as evidenced by Rome was still around. You know what I'm saying? The Roman, the Roman way of fighting really wasn't, but that's because there was no one that could really, afford to do what Rome did. Except for maybe the Chinese, but they fought entirely differently, smarter, and a more developed level of war. Rome was
And
really
that's
Europe's
not Alexander's
pinnacle of.
fault at all.
It is.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Because for all we know,
Being able to stand
Alexander.
the test of time, being able to go forward and backward is the true sign of a great army. Alexander's army does not do that. The Hellenic phalanx, phalangite type of fighting does not stand the test of time. The Rome, it would be over when it
What is
finished.
Genghis Khan? What did Genghis Khan do that stands the test of time? Because if you bring a lot of horsemen today, they would get slaughtered. So
Well, if you
what
bring
is
a lot
Genghis?
of pikemen today, they would get slaughtered. But there were still mounted horse archers fighting in like the 1800s.
And Genghis Khan was the first to do that.
No, he wasn't the first to do that. Alexander was one of the first to fight in the phalanx.
I mean,
I mean,
but his dad was the first to bring the pikes.
no.
And
No.
first,
Also, no. We have freaking released paintings of Assyrians in a similar formation with long spears of stone and whatnot. That's from a whole lot of places. But yeah, in Europe, in Greece, that particular way of fighting, Philip didn't even 100% invent that either. He just made the spear a little longer than Epicrates, who he studied under, and Epaminondas.
look. At the end of the day, it's not Alexander's fault. The rest of the world, like you said, didn't have as much armies. It wasn't his fault because we're looking at it from hindsight. Let me paint this picture.
Yeah, we're looking at it from
And
hindsight.
no, listen. At Alexander's time, they didn't even think he was capable of doing this, right? From obviously, we know Macedon was extremely small at Philip's time, gradually got bigger. Alexander, when he was crossing in to Persia, King Darius didn't even, it was beneath him to even challenge Alexander face to face. He sent some other generals to fight the first few battles because the Persian Empire was so bad. He didn't even respect Alexander. No one thought Alexander could do this. So it's not his fault.
Could do that.
It's not like Alexander's army just had
Dude, you
the.
can't say that. How can you say no one thought Alexander could do that? All of Greece thought Alexander could do that. That's why they supported him.
No.
That army followed him. That's why. What did Alexander get the Persia on? That fucking pontoon bridge his dad built.
You said all of Greece supported him. No, they were waiting for the chance to flip.
When he crossed into Persia, he had the whole of Greece on his back, except maybe Sparta. Sparta didn't matter.
And they were quick to flip still. He kept them in check, but they were going to flip. I forgot the name of the general, but there was a Persian general that, Persia they were fighting back. And then one of their good generals died. And you act like Persia was, they controlled half the world for a reason. They controlled most of the known world for a reason.
What was that reason? Tell me.
Because of their forefathers.
Because not long before the accumulated Persian Empire, Darius had helped conquer the first empire in human history, the Neo-Assyrian Empire. And then he conquers the Median Empire and the Babylonian Empire. The Neo-Assyrian Empire, before the Persian Empire, was the largest empire in human history. It gets a whole lot easier when you're the first to do something. The further back you go, the easier it becomes to do something.
Not necessarily.
Yes, absolutely
I mean,
necessarily. That's what
no,
set the Neo-Assyrians apart. They were the first professional army in recorded history.
okay, they were the smartest to make a professional army. Then they
Yeah,
were the first people to think, "Oh, we should make a professional army." That doesn't make it easier. It
yeah,
just makes
that does make it easier
it makes it easier to.
when you have the only professional military in the world. It does become a lot easier when you're fighting non-professional militaries.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you're fighting steppe people because their whole way of life is warfare.
Oh, so you're saying it wasn't?
Every male was a professional.
So that means Genghis Khan's, you know, it wasn't accomplishments. It wasn't that
They
crazy
were
because
even more because Genghis Khan had to first conquer all these other people that were just as capable in theory of fighting as him. He had to conquer the steppe. The steppe wasn't given to him when he was born. He had to do that. And then he went on to conquer the two most powerful places in the world, Jin China and the Khwarezmian Empire. Both of which were more technologically advanced, had a greater population, and had more disciplined men than the Mongols' entire male population. There really is no comparison. Like, all of the, like, I don't mean to be that guy, but this is something that, like, 100% needs to be said. It's really kind of racist just ignoring the true facts because, oh, these were the best. No, they weren't. For most of history, Eastern warfare was at a higher level than Western warfare. When you really look from numbers alone, and to have those numbers on the battlefield, let's just look at this. China would have multiple battles in which more than 1 million people were involved in the BC times. Europe, the West, would not reach a single battle in which more than 1 million men were involved until the First World War.
like you said, there's more people on the earth,
Yeah, there were more people, but that what is okay? But
and
the
that's not
Mongols had.
Alexander's fault because he was
It doesn't
outnumbered.
matter whose fault. It doesn't matter whose
Yeah,
fault. It's just like GSP, like arguing, oh, is John Jones the GOAT? It's not John Jones's fault. It's just how shit is.
no,
Like, it doesn't matter. No one makes excuses for why Rome was so good. It's not Rome's fault that nobody else had the Roman army. Yeah, you're right. It's not Rome's fault. That's just how shit was.
yeah, and it's not Alexander's fault. The Persians were falling from
You're
grace.
right. It's not. But you have to take that into consideration. They weren't near Alexander's level. Alexander had the premier military given to him. Genghis Khan had to create the premier military, and his blueprint stood the test of time. Alexander's didn't.
What blueprints are those?
The steppe way of fighting, horse archers. In the 1700s, people are still fighting with the same tactics, the feigned retreat, the mass mount stood the test of time. Alexander's didn't.
What blueprints are those?
The steppe way of fighting, horse archers. In the 1700s, people are still fighting with the same tactics, the feigned retreat, the mass mounted archers. Nowhere,
And
nowhere 500 years, nowhere 500 years after Alexander's death was using that same way of fighting that Alexander was. Nowhere 300 years.
I mean, if you take away the hammer and anvil from Alexander, but yeah,
No, no. That's not Alexander's entire. That's not Alexander's military. That's a strategy that multiple people employed. That's just like, well, if you take away X tactic that was developed multiple places, but this is the one that we can point to and say this is the first that we know of. That's most people didn't write shit down. We don't have conclusive records from all of history to say that, for one. But for two, I forgot what my next point was.
God damn it.
Bitch. Put some respect. And you know how I feel about China. But you better put some respect on their military history.
No, I know.
I don't think you
It's
do.
just that Alexander was not only a great commander.
He wasn't.
Like I said, he was a great guy.
He definitely wasn't. That's why.
And a great
he killed him.
Allegedly.
That's why he started killing his own men. Great men don't do that. Genghis Khan didn't have to kill his own men. His men loved him.
Genghis Khan he didn't have to kill his own men.
Still revered in Central Asia to this very day.
Genghis Khan.
And Tamerlane.
He killed enough people.
Tamerlane. Everybody kills a whole lot of people. Caesar killed a whole lot of people. Alexander killed a whole lot of people. Pol Pot killed a whole lot of people. Everybody kills a lot of people. Unfortunately,
they weren't great with that many people.
They absolutely were. The only difference is they weren't nearly as successful. Uh-oh.
No, that's crazy. That's crazy. I feel like if Genghis Khan would stop thinking with his genitalia, he would have done a lot better. If he would have put the grind before his women, he would have did a heck of a lot better. And he might maybe reach Alexander, but he didn't. Alexander, 10 years of campaign, 5.2 million kilometers conquered.
That's nothing. That's such a nothing stat.
Genghis Khan.
That's nothing.
Genghis Khan, 21 years.
You can reiterate that stat again and again.
12 million kilometers. Oh, double the years, double the miles. It's not that big.
Literally doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No, Alexander had to conquer one empire. That's it. One weak empire. That's not that impressive.
And he did it with flying colors. No battles lost.
Allegedly. He had to leave India. Temujin, after he conquered the steppe, he didn't lose a battle. So that's really not an argument either.
But he got kidnapped. So
when he was a child, yeah.
I know his wife got... Him and his wife got kidnapped. Alexander would not let his wife slide like that, bro.
Alexander was also a homosexual, so I don't think he would have cared too much. And Temujin, this was all before. You keep switching it up. Genghis Khan didn't get kidnapped. This was before he was Khan of Khans. So,
well, his wife got kidnapped.
Huh?
But he just was. What he was kidnapped.
Conquering.
Genghis Khan was kidnapped too.
The other areas. When he was younger, Genghis Khan wasn't. Temujin was. Long before he was proclaimed Genghis Khan. No, he wasn't kidnapped, you dummy.
He was taken.
He was not taken. You don't.
He was prisoner.
Shut up. There was a custom of the steppe that when young men reach a certain age, they would go and serve a different tribe. When he reached that certain age, oopsie, his father's died. Oopsie, you're no longer part of the clan. Oopsie, now you're a slave. Then what? Then he rises to become the most powerful and influential man in non-religious human history. Alexander has less than a fraction of the impact than Genghis Khan himself.
I wouldn't
Silk
know
Road would not exist if it weren't for Genghis Khan. Would not have existed. Gunpowder would not have reached Europe if not for the Mongols.
Hellenistic culture is still prominent today.
Is
Like,
where?
I mean, their offspring basically.
In literally only the place and where it started. They're not
Nah,
practicing Hellenistic culture in Turkey. They're not practicing it in Hebrew land or Palestine or Egypt, are they? No. And he didn't create Hellenistic culture.
I mean, no, he didn't. But like you said, the
Yeah.
I forgot who was it, Ptolemy that took over Egypt.
Or Egypt.
Yeah, them boys. They still held true to Alexander, and if it wasn't for Alexander, none of that shit would have happened.
That's incorrect. Philip. If it wasn't for Philip, none of that shit would have happened. If literally, that's the only thing you can say that's like the best attribute of Alexander is that he was able to keep the people that would become the Diadochi loyal to him for as long as he did. That is his greatest accomplishment. The Mongols had the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Human history. That's and if you want to talk about people that died too early and people that's lucky, let's talk about Ogadai. If Ogadai lives 10, 15 more years, Europe is fucked in the ass. You're going to edit out the swears, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Well,
I'm not saying Alexander's pretty decent. He's pretty all right. But he's not top 3.
No.
If you want to talk about generals, absolutely not. Because as I said earlier,
what's your top 3?
My top 3: Genghis Khan, Subutai, and then it gets probably Hannibal.
Generals or conquerors?
Generals. I thought that's what this whole thing. Conquerors. It's Genghis Khan. Probably. Damn. Ooh, that's a lot tougher. Ashurbanipal.
Who the fuck is that guy?
The guy who really, I think, under him, the Neo-Assyrian Empire would reach its greatest height.
Bro, then generals? You gonna put Julius Caesar in your top 3 generals?
No, I didn't put him in my no, absolutely not. I would put him in top 3, I'd put him in like top 3, just like Chads of history.
Yeah.
Well, obviously he was like a good general, but if you're a Roman general whose name we know from the time, you're a good general.
True. Very true.
That was episode 1. Tune in next time for episode 2 of History Niggas.